installed 4x4 treated posts to create framing for the screens themselves, plus a screen door. Around these treated lumber 4x4 posts, I wrapped them with 3/4 inch PVC, if that makes any sense to you. So I want to attach a screen door that I made out of wood. It's 5/4 poplar that I made it out of. But I want to screw, in other words, I want to inset this door so that I can screw into the 4x4 post and not just the PVC. Curious to know, is that the intended purpose of these Parliament wide throw hinges, or is there a better hinge for doing something like that?
I would say that it is a permissible use for that hinge. And in essence, the answer is yes, it is. You've got something applied to the jamb that you need to get the door out and around. And sounds like a good use for a wide throw.
Okay. In watching your video, I didn't have an understanding, though, of how to properly size the hinge. The door itself is made out of 5/4 poplar, so it's an inch thick.
Yeah, and 1 1/4 in the rough, but yeah.
Well, dimensionally it does measure 1 inch.
Yeah, that just means when that 5/4 started out light in the rough, it was 1 1/4. I happen to speak lumber a little bit.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, cool 1 inch thick door. Yeah, a little thicker than average. That's good.
Yeah. So, to allow me to attach this hinge, though, to the post, I need to be inset. I need to bring that door, set the door back in about 1 inch.
Okay.
So I've got 3/4 inch PVC there, and there's a 3/4 inch reveal, or I'm sorry, a 1/4 inch reveal on the PVC on the front face of it. So 1 inch total to get me into the treated lumber. So for a wide throw hinge, what size would I need for that?
1 inch, 2 plus that, you would need nothing greater than 4 inch, as far as I can tell. And you've only got a 1 inch thick. Well, the issue though is your door is very thin. Is the problem. I'm going to ask that you email me a sketch of what you're doing, a cross section of everything, and and then we'll go from there. If you're in the website, my email is under Contact Us in the upper right-hand corner of the site.
Okay.
Just go into my house, my Uber driver. Thanks. And we'll look at it, and then I'll be able to send you back also formula. I don't know, in 2012 I was talking about the formula for wide throw.
Yeah. Okay.
And then at the end of the day,
I had no idea there were so many hinges. I had no idea. I'm just a homeowner, do-it-yourselfer type, but I was trying to educate myself a little bit on hinges, and I stumbled across your video, which was really good, by the way.
Thank you.
So you're the sales department, sales at ABS Supply?
Yeah, that'll come straight to me.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll capture a couple of photographs tonight and drop a little sketch for you in the morning and send it over.
Yeah, push comes to shove.
Again, my name. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say what we have to do is make sure that it's not going to, that the holes for the screws aren't going to breach through the door. So because your door is so thin, we're going to be limited by, the formula may not work because we're going to be limited by where we've got to place the screws in the, So how heavy is the door?
I'm guesstimating probably in the order of 40 pounds.
Very light. Okay. Yeah, very light. Okay, so no problem.
Yeah.
Point being is if you had to live with just two screw holes, you could probably, two screws, you could probably make that happen. Because the vertical center to center of the screw holes is likely going to be a problem to contain it within a 1 inch thick door.
I see.
Yeah, so that could be where the problem is.
Something different. What's throwing me is, again, as you know, that PVC material is I don't know if you'd be able to retain a screw in that if the door is slamming shut, and I have a feeling it would rip the screws out pretty easily. So that's why I was trying to get it back or insetted enough where I could actually screw in, through the PVC and into the wood.
Yeah, I think it would have a marginal amount of screw withdrawal resistance, but not very much.
Yeah, things you learn along the way, I guess. It's just unfortunate.
Ain't that hey, that's
Street porch is about done except for the stupid door. So
the good thing, the next one you'll be an expert on.
Oh yeah, I've got about 5 projects underway, and holy cow, I got to get at least one of them done. Focused on the screen porch.
Yeah, but, I used to do that, and I got to a point where I won't start one until I finish the next. But I do have a pile of things that I ought not have, which means I'm staging for the next project. It's just, I used to have a large desk on confined.
It's just not in my personality because I've never quit anything in my life. But I built a lot of this house on my own, and there's pretty much done, except for there's projects, that I've hired done over the years, and they weren't really done to my satisfaction. So I'm redoing everything from a fireplace to, bathroom to now the screen porch. The screen porch was never there. It was just a breezeway. It was open. And I'm in the Northeast, so get a lot of weather. Mm-hmm. And the screen will cut down on snow blowing through there for sure. And it won't prevent it all together, but it'll at least create a little bit of a snow fence, if you will.
Yeah, well, you're in good company. I study Civil War history often, and Grant built his own house. I had some people help him with the heavy lifting, literally the heavy lifting of the logs, but he called it hard scrabble. He lived in that house for about 5 years. So you might be able to get into your inner Grant and understand the troubles of doing that. The house was. He didn't have a level, and you could see it from the street, according to legend. You could tell it wasn't quite right.
Yeah. No, it's just, long story short, it seems like I get into some of these projects, and there's always a stumbling block, and, it's one of those things that's just difficult to overcome, and because of that, I lose ambition. I've got, like I said, 5 projects that were unfinished. This was one of them, so... Anyway, I'll feel good about myself if I can finally get that done.
Yeah.
Okay, so adding on to the initial conversation with the client, I've received this email, and let's take a look. So the client has a wood post, and he's wrapping it in PVC. Okay, so he's going for a particular look, I imagine, with the PVC, probably white to match his fence, the whole 9 yards, or the facade of the house. The issue that he has, though, is he's got a 1-inch, well, what he said, 36 by 80 by 1-inch screen door. So we can run the formula for wide throw, and we can easily determine what that dimension would otherwise be. And I've pulled up I've pulled up a manufacturer's, Stanley in this case, their formula for wide throw, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. For hinge width formula, refer to page 5. So let's go to page 5. So it's door thickness minus backset times 2. And so let's look at this. So door thickness is 1 inch minus backset. Let's assume that there's going to be a 1/4 inch backset. And what is meant by that is, here's his 1-inch door. Okay. But when he mortises it for the hinge, it's really going to look like this. And then your hinge your barrel. Sorry, I'm an awful artist. My goodness. Your hinge sits here. Okay. This is the back set. So let's say he's going to have a 1/4 inch back set. So 1 minus back set times 2 is 1.5 inches. 1 minus 1/4 times 2 is 1.5 inches. Plus the clearance, he's got a 1 inch clearance here. That's 2.5. Plus any sort of, I'm sorry, back up. Door thickness minus back set. 1 minus 1/4 times 2 is 1.5 inches. Plus the clearance. There is no clearance. No clearance, so that's 0. We're still at 1.5 inches. Plus the inset, which is 1 inch. So now we're at 2.5 inch. If it's not a standard width, use the next standard hinge width. Well, it would be a 3 inch. So he could get a 3.5 by 3. That would certainly work. And Stanley does make a 3.5 by 3. FBB1793, maybe? Let's take a look. Oh, cool. So, tech drawing. Okay, so here it is. So, the question is, we're going to have 3/4 inch to play with. Can we fit these screw holes in 3/4 inch? Okay, so we know that the edge of the leaf to the center of the hole is 0.687. Okay, I don't know exactly the diameter of that hole, but let's say that it's got a number 12 screw, so I can look up the body diameter of a number 12 screw. Actually, it might be a number 10 on this screw. So let's say it's, you know, not more than a 1/4 inch. So the answer is technically it will work. In the sense that you can get out here and get to 1 inch. The problem is his back set. So I think what the trouble is going to be is the client's going to need to run that hinge leaf Wow. Not Artist of the Year. That's to be sure. How does that work? Okay, so I drew that wrong. Let's take a better look at it. I am reasonably proficient in AutoCAD when it comes to this stuff, so it makes it even worse. I don't have an excuse for being so sloppy. So then his post is going to run to about here. So if he goes with a 0 back set on the hinge, you'll be able to fit that hinge on there. Because the edge of the leaf, you know, let's add, well, let's not guess. Bear with me one moment. I'm going to put my caliper on the outside diameter of the head of the screw, and that's going to represent the outer concentric circle. So the diameter of the head of the screw is going to be 0.49. I'm sorry, 0.39. 0.39. So what we're dealing with here is 0.687. 0.687 plus 0.39. We're going to be at 1.07 inch. Okay, so right to here is going to be 0.107. So basically 1 1/16. If the client can keep the screw very delicately away from the, you know, the edge of the door is going to come right to here, right in this area. So if that screw can be drilled in such a way, straight is what I'm trying to say, that he doesn't have any trouble with that. Breaching is what I mean. I'm saying that it's going to breach. then you won't have any trouble. The client might also consider biasing this hinge leaf off the back end. Maybe let it sit out here 1/8 at the most. Scooch it back here if you follow my meaning. Scooch is a technical term. Maybe take that hinge and run it back like this. That might not be the end of the world. To cheat that, so that when you put your screw in, you're not gonna here's your screw. You don't want to breach out here. That's the problem. Okay. So based on the application and running the formula, a 3-inch wide hinge is gonna, should work for them pretty well. So if we rerun that formula with 0 as the back set, so door thickness 1 inch minus 0 is 1 times 2 is 2 plus your clearance, you have 0 clearance requirement. There's no casing or brick mold out here. Plus 1 for inset is 3. So it's on the money at 3 inch. So it's, it's on the money at 3 inch. Now the issue is, it's not going to work in the sense that this is a full mortise hinge. It's swagged. Okay, this dimension on a 3-inch hinge from here to the center line is 1.5 inches. Well, we've got 2 inch. That means the barrel is going to sit in here. 2 ways to solve that: either order a raised barrel hinge, or you simply order a wider hinge. Would be the bottom line. So a raised barrel hinge is kind of neat. Let's just take a look at that since we're talking about it. There you go. Does that not elegantly solve the problem? It absolutely does. So a raised barrel could be a great way to do it. And I like the raised barrel idea, but if we don't do that, then we're going to need a wider hinge. And let's take another look at that. So here's back our formula, just to keep that on the page. So if we went with a 4-inch tall by 3.5, we can get our hands on that. It'd be 1 3/4 to the center of the barrel. Well, if he backs the hinge up here, we're still not going to be wide enough. That hinge won't be wide enough because the barrel is going to need to encroach into this space, and it's just not going to work. So 3.5 inch wide won't work. What if we did a 4-inch? That means it'll be 2 inch from here to the center line. That's still no good because we've got 1 inch and 1 inch. You would really need a 4.5 inch wide hinge to make this work, which would be 2 1/4, and you're going to be really, really close to that barrel sitting there. And in fact, it would be a little too tight because the OD of the barrel is greater than 1/2 inch. So we can see that that's simply not going to work comfortably as if it were to be drawn here. So the answer would be a 5-inch hinge because we need to get that barrel out far enough. Let's assume that this is about 3/4 diameter. If a 5-inch hinge is 2.5, we're going to be right there. So in order to get that barrel to sit out here, you're going to need a 5-inch wide hinge. Okay. What's constraining that? What's constraining it is the fact that we have a 1-inch door. That's the problem. If that door was a standard thickness, you could install it with a normal back set, cheat it out like you would normally, and then just use a 1-inch inset value for the formula. So I think the right answer is going to be special ordering a raised barrel hinge. A 3.5 by 3 raised barrel hinge that would work very elegantly. The issue, and I could put all this into AutoCAD, and the reason I say that is because he can run that hinge. Let's pull up our little paint program. That's the post, sorry. If you run that hinge, the issue is that the vertical axis of pivoting is only going to allow that door to go so far. It's not going to go out and around. It won't go to 180 degrees because we're coming up with a 3-inch wide hinge, which is going to be right about, you know, in the middle between here and here if we're just visually scaling it. So I'd have to put it into AutoCAD to be able to tell you the degree of opening. It will obviously go to 90, and it will probably go to 120 degree. But at some point, the door is going to end up hitting that outside corner is what's going to end up hitting. It's going to hit here. So if we went with a wider hinge, like a 4-inch, that would clear us because we'd have that vertical axis of pivoting out here. So it'll be up to the client what he wants to do in terms of how wide of a hinge ultimately to go with. If there is a limiter on the opening at all, meaning a closer or maybe a crash chain, and I'm looking, oh, hold the phone, Gov. Yeah, okay, I see what we're doing here. It's an in-swing door. Yeah, let's share that with you. It's an in-swing door. I guess that's a picture of what we're trying to match. But here's the application. It's an in-swing door. You know, will you need to swing that door more than 110, 120 degrees? Probably not. Would you need to be mindful that you can't or you're going to hit the jam? Yeah, you would. So you're probably going to want to think about a wider hinge in that regard. I would go with a 4-inch wide. Well, would I? Yeah, I'd go with a 4-inch wide hinge. Because that would allow you to swing it so far open that you're not going to really have a problem. You could put a doorstop on the floor as well to prevent it. And short of putting all this into AutoCAD, and while I'm proficient, I didn't say I was fast. I would be tempted to use a 4x4 raised barrel. So let's take a look at, we know what our 3.5-inch tall template is, 3.5 by 3. Let's look at a 4x4 template and see if we get into any trouble. Yeah, you can see that when we go to a 4-inch, now it's 0.75. So we're going to add a 0.39 to that. Yeah, we're going to be awfully close to breaching. That screw is probably going to be dreadfully close to breaching if the client doesn't cheat the hinge back here like I had said before. Half a 0.39, 0.195. Super close. Probably not going to breach, but super close. If it was me, I would probably go with a, it would depend. If the client wants it to go more than 110, 120 degrees, 4-inch, cheat it back a little bit. Otherwise, if going to 90 or 100 degree would be acceptable, and you could put a floor stop on the floor, or for that matter, you can put an overhead stop, a very light duty overhead stop, just a slide track. I'll just quickly show you what that all looks like. Client could easily add a overhead stop to the application. I'm going to pull one up that would be appropriate. You could do, well, you could do something that's mortised. That would be really nice. Like this 40, mortise it all up into the door and frame. That would be extremely elegant. You would template that to limit the door at a certain opening. You could also install it that it was surface mounted, and I like Rixon's catalog for that because they show a flush transom bracket, and I don't know if the client has this condition, but let's take a look. Pull side of door right here. So you would surface mount a unit, then you'd have a special angle bracket manufactured Method 5, reverse installation, pull side of the door. So we can install that on the pull side of his 5/4 is what the lumber he started out with. That would limit the door very appropriately. And you could also mortise these so you'd never see them like this. That would be great as well. Clearly from the photographs, this is a nice clean installation that the client's done for himself, and is, from what I would gather, probably sparing no expense to make it look as elegant as it does. So that would be my official recommendation on this. Probably 3.5 by 3 raised barrel. I would like to see an overhead concealed stop installed. If that wasn't realistic and you wanted the door to swing more, I'd go with a 4-inch wide, and then cheat that hinge leaf back here. There we go. Hopefully that helps.
Oh, I hadn't quite seen that approach before, but yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah, and I apologize for that door being in there. I just had it sitting there. In fact, if you look closely on the bottom, there's still hooks there where I hung the door to paint it. So it was just sitting there in the background. Right? Yeah, those are just hooks I had hanging off a wire line. So yeah, it was meant to swing outward, but with a left-hand hinge. But anyway, yeah, you said you had some other ideas. What were you thinking?
Yeah, so let's take a look. So the
well, I'll tell you what, not to interrupt you there, but I had shown that one insetting the door like 1 inch, and that was simply, like I said, so I could get the screw holes for the hinge into the wooden post. Realizing, not fully understanding where the screw holes on the hinge are, I mean, it could be cheated outwards a bit. It doesn't necessarily have to be at that 1 inch, if that makes a difference or not.
I think it does a little bit, sure. I mean, where ultimately you would position the door in terms of the ultimate inset is obviously a part of the formula, but that limiting factor of 1 inch in terms of the door thickness has to be considered as well at the same time. Mm-hmm. So what would be done normally is a raised barrel hinge is what would be used in a deep inset application. Or, well, either way, wide throw or raised barrel. They're used, very often. I've residential applications where the door's got an excessive amount of trim applied to it or jam extensions. It ultimately ends up being the same effect as having a deep inset, a deeper inset. So, there are also applications where you've got an 18-inch thick wall and you've got 2 1/4-inch thick doors, and they are set in the direct middle of that 18-inch jam. So construction from the 19th century, before structural steel, 3-story buildings had very thick first-floor walls. So wide throw hinges were used, same concept. But this morning it dawned on me, as I was still unintentionally kicking around the idea, that the solution is probably a little bit easier. So if you're at a computer, okay, so, well, so that we're looking at the same thing, go to my site, absupply.net.
Okay, take a second to get there, only because my computer's kind of slow. Okay, I'm there.
So in the search box, top center, if you'll type in the name SOSS, which is SOSS, and then hit enter, click go. Let me know.
I'm sorry, you said SOFF?
Sierra, Oscar, Sierra, Sierra.
No products found.
So it's all S's, as in Sam. So Sam, Oscar, Sam, Sam.
Okay. Yep, I'm seeing them there now.
Click on that first one, and when that page loads, scroll down to about halfway down the screen, and you'll see a cross-section. Oh, you'll see an isometric drawing of the hinge. There's a link there called Clearance Detail. If you'll fire up that PDF,
Clearance detail, yep.
So Sauce is a manufacturer of concealed hinges, and they have been for several decades. I'm thinking you could use a Sauce product. The limitations are this. You're not going to get that out past 90 degree. And if you push it further, you're straining, stressing the screws, the PVC, all that stuff. So this would be extremely elegant in the sense that you don't see anything when the door's closed. Nothing. You have no idea how the door's hung. You would really want to figure out a way that you would limit the door, and the overhead concealed door stop, I think I mentioned yesterday, would be the cat's meow in terms of how to do that. That would absolutely, you would template it to be 90. Well, maybe I've got to look at a template, but if they'll template at 85, I would template it there because it does have a little bit of movement past that. And that would completely stop that. But I wanted to mention to you the Sauce idea because it might have legs. It really boils down to what degree of opening do you want to accomplish?
Sure. To answer that question, I guess as much as I could get, but 90 degrees would be just fine, or slightly less than 90 degrees would be fine.
Yeah.
As you can see in that photograph, the steps are 42 inches wide, I think. The door is 36, simply so that I could get a small table in and out of there. But yeah, that's 90 degrees would be more than fine.
Yeah, my only concern is someone making it want to go to 91.
Sure.
As a hardware person, I would want to solve that with hardware. But just be, if it's adult used and it's infrequent back and forth, I wouldn't necessarily worry about it too much. But the other problem is, if there's any sort of wind condition, which I doubt there is, that looks like a breezeway, like what we call a lanai down here. So I just wanted to run that past you. If it was me, I would do Sauce and an overhead stop because I can mortise for all that. I know how to do it. If you wanted the lowest hanging fruit, I think in terms of cost, it would be a raised barrel hinge, but you won't, you're going to get 110. I didn't put it into AutoCAD to know what that is. That could be a mystery for the universe, I suppose.
Sure.
And if you had to swing it to 180, then it's going to have to be a wide throw hinge. That's all there is.
Yeah, that's not even the 180 degree thing doesn't matter to me. Like I said, 90 or thereabouts would be just fine for what we're doing.
Yeah, the only advantage of 180 is yeah, exactly right. So and that's what hardware is there to solve, how we actually use the stuff. 180 is nice because you'll never have a problem of damaging anything with a hyper over swing of the door. Sure. But you might put a crash chain on there, something that will kind of limit it. But if you're only going to 90, it's really that crash chain's not going to work. It'll be hanging so far in the opening.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff, Richard. The other thing, I watched the video actually a couple times last night after I got home, but then I started thinking about it. I've got about 2 hours invested into the door that I made, 1 inch thick. And the reason I made a 1 inch thick door was because I went to Lowe's or Home Depot and I bought a $80 wooden door, but it was such poor quality. And they had this screen stapled in there and it wasn't really done. I don't even know where it was made, but it was just a really, really poor job on the door. And after I got it home, I said, the screen is probably going to last about a week in there. And, I looked at it. I said, well, geez, I could probably fix that or, improve that. The looks of it, but by the time I got done doing all of that, I might as well just build my own door. So they had used 5/4 material. It was 1 inch thick. And that's what I copied. I took kind of that idea and I just made my own door, just better quality. If I'd have known the thickness, I hadn't really thought about hanging the door. I just simply thought about making up the door, and then I got to the point of wanting to hang, and I said, well, shit, that's not going to work very well. So anyway, point is I could make up another door.
How did you put your stiles and rails together? Did you use a shaper?
I used just pocket screws, and I doweled them to plug the screw holes, and I routed the edges off. So
Well,
yeah, the Craig pocket screws work pretty well for that. I could have done the whole rails and style, mortised all that out. I wasn't going to get into all that for a screen door that I didn't know if it would even last or not. But anyway, so I guess my real question is, at the end of the day, with just simply making a thicker door, I've got a total like $50 into that door in 2 hours of time.
What about laminating onto the existing door you've built?
I could do that as well.
Yeah.
I could.
If you had access to a planer, you could, you could just take 1x material and just plane it down to 3/8 or whatever you want to make it, 1/4 inch. Whether or not you do that is going to be based on which hinge you choose. If it's a raised barrel, I wouldn't worry about it. If it's sauce, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're going to want to do wide throw, then you're going to go with a larger hinge. But the idea is that you don't want to have a ton of hardware on this either. It's a very light door, and wide throw hinges. That's going to look like you've got hinges on the door. I think it'll look cool, but I think you're going to see hardware.
Sure. No, that's cool. I'll mull this over. The raised barrel hinges you said were, I believe in the video you said were special order.
Well, there's certainly going to be special order in the size that you want. And I would like to give you a part number so that you can look at a drawing. So in that same search box, would you type in the letters BB, as in boy,
okay,
5040, and then just hit enter, and let me know when that page loads.
Yeah, I'm seeing Boomer.
Yep, click on the first one, and then scroll down left side, look for a link called Cut Sheet.
Oh, yeah. Let's see.
And that gives you a non-awful hand drawing of what that looks like. Now, there are variations on raised barrel, but your mortise application on the left side, that's possibly what you would do, very likely.
Okay.
Or you'll do the surface application, where you would surface mount. If you zoom in on there, it's the same hinge. For all intents and purposes. Well, it's not technically the same hinge. To be technical, there are 3 variants of this. But this would be like a double deep mortise. If you surface mounted it to your jamb, you would double deep mortise your door, a little bit more than double mortise it. You could see how you're going to pocket that out much deeper on the door. The advantage is that you're not trying to mortise into the jamb, which is not an option. So you would be doing a surface mount in that regard. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that as well, if I had to mortise the jamb side.
Yeah, I don't see the advantage in the sense of, you don't, it would be nicer in the sense that when the door's open, you're going to not be able to see surface mounted hinges, but no one's going to be looking at this except you. And me, if I ever come over, no one's going to look at this. No one will know.
Absolutely.
So, could you mortise out that PVC? Yeah, I suppose you can get a template clamp down there somehow and get a router, but I've never tried it.
Yeah. I'm fearful of it. I probably would. Just takes one slip and...
Oh, yeah. Start over.
Yeah, and it would be painful with the screen and everything. So, geez. I kind of like this idea.
Oh, it's the way to go. 9 out of 10 guys are going to say this is the way to go. 9 out of 10.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
It's low-hanging fruit. It's what you're going to expect to see. It reasonably gets you a good degree of opening. And without me putting it into AutoCAD, let's just agree it's going to be 110 degree for sure.
Sure. What would the lead type or something like that be, Richard?
I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 weeks to get something like that made up. Yeah.
All right.
I stock raised barrel, but only in a 4.5-inch tall hinge. And actually, when you scroll on that same page you're on, you lower right-hand corner. So I stock a 4.5-inch raised barrel, but you'll see where those screw holes lie out. You'd really have to cheat the hinge well off the backside of the door, or you'd have to figure out some way to elegantly grind the whole hinge down and then have that hinge completely mortised into the edge of the door, because that one screw hole is an inch over. So you'd have to really cheat it in there.
Yeah.
it's just not enough thickness is the bottom line. If you increase your door thickness, then I've got stock hinges, or figured out a way to, use 2 of the screw holes rather than 4, like I said earlier, which it's still somewhat problematic with the hardware.
Let me go that route. What's a set of those cost?
They're not cheap. Unfortunately, let's look. BB5040s, I stock them in a 450 and a 652. I only stock them in satin chrome, and they are $74 and change each. So it'd be $150 for 2 hinges.
$20. Yeah.
So the ones that I would quote that would be smaller, they'll be by Stanley or Hager possibly. They will be noticeably less expensive than that. I happen to stock Bomber 100% made in the United States, are the only company who can make that claim. That's the one I like to stock. But but Bomber's going out of business, nor will they make a smaller raised barrel. Yeah. So it would be somebody who's importing from Asia.
Sure. Then, so what about this plot? I mean, this is going really. I could make a thicker door, pretty inexpensive. What about just doing a thicker door with just a normal wide throw hinge?
Well, sure. I mean, at that point,
the door that I've already made at my daughter's new house. So.
Yeah. Well, if you get out to 1.5 inches or 1 3/4 thick, then it's just literally running that wide throw formula.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Door thickness is let's say door thickness is 1.75 minus 0.25 times 2.
Inset, or you call that inset, right?
The backside, actually. So
backside, yeah.
Yeah. Plus 0 plus, let's just say that the inset didn't change at 1 inch. I mean, you're gonna need a 5-inch wide hinge is what you're gonna need, and I do stock 4x5, 4 tall, 5 wide hinges. That part number in the search box would be 5010.
5010. Let me get back to that one. Is this your business, Richard?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and I do have one.
I'm seeing them there.
So 5010, well, it's 5010-405. That would be the hinge that you would consider using. And I do have different finishes in stock. Prime coat, there's black, there's oil rubbed. If I recall, you had some darker accents somewhere. Or you can just paint them white with prime coat. Black. I have black as well. Black would be the 601 finish. It's just the image that's there doesn't show it.
Yeah. I may just do that. Do I order these right online, or should I order through you?
Oh, it comes back the same way. By all means, call back. It's faster if I do it, but it's literally the same thing if you do it.
Yeah, okay. I may just do that, make up a wider or thicker door.
Yeah, the raised barrel hinge. I mean, the wide throw hinge solves it. It's in stock. While they're still very expensive, you solve all the problems. Thicker door allows you a non-constrained installation for the screws into the edge of the door, and it will allow you to get the barrel out, and you're going to be able to swing that door.
Yeah, I think I'll just do that. I think I'll do that, Richard.
Yep.
The door I've already made up won't go to waste because my daughter and fiance just bought a house that they're wanting to add a screen door as well. Different application though, so they're not working with PVC, and I think that would probably work out well at their place.
Yeah, they probably don't have a custom design like what you're doing.
No, that's correct. Yeah, I like that. Well, very good. I'll give you a shout back. I'll probably order a couple of these in black then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be here today. I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here next week. Whenever you decide, we give time over the weekend to make your final plan.
Yeah, no, that sounds good, Richard. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for calling.
Been a huge help. I really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.